A German Shepherd vanished without a trace on a routine hiking trip, only to be discovered 2 weeks later 40 feet underground in an abandoned mine shaft. But what rescuers found alongside her defied every expectation about survival and maternal instinct. For 14 days, this dog survived in complete darkness with no food, no water source, and temperatures dropping below freezing at night. What kept her alive wasn't just will. It was something that will change how you think about animal intelligence and compassion forever. What you're about to witness will shatter your understanding of interspecies relationships. Make sure to subscribe because stories like this remind us why the animal kingdom continues to amaze us. This is Luna's impossible story. 40 feet below ground, in a tomb of rotting timber and stagnant water, Luna's amber eyes catch the first beam of light she's seen in 14 days. The German Shepherd's distinctive bark, once strong enough to echo across mountain valleys, now comes out as barely more than a rasp. But it's enough. After 2 weeks of silence from these depths, that sound becomes the thread that will either pull her back to the world above or snap under the weight of everything that's already gone wrong. The Blackstone mine hasn't seen human activity since 1952, when the last copper ore cart rolled out of these tunnels. What remains is a labyrinth of forgotten shafts where wooden support beams sag like ancient ribs, groaning under decades of mountain pressure. The air sits thick and heavy, tasting of rust and decay, while water drips with the persistence of a broken heart. The temperature hovers at 48 degrees. Cold enough to steal body heat, warm enough to breed despair that seeps into your bones. Luna's prison measures roughly 8 feet across, a circular chamber where she's found a small ledge of dry rock above murky water pooling at the bottom. Her black and tan coat, once glossy from Sarah's daily brushing, now hangs matted against her ribs. Every few hours, she lifts her head toward that impossible circle of daylight above and releases that bark. The same sound she used to make when Sarah grabbed hiking boots from the closet. It's hope distilled into acoustic waves, bouncing off stone walls that have swallowed dreams of dozens of creatures over decades. But Luna wasn't supposed to be here. 2 weeks ago, she was the center of Sarah Martinez's carefully rebuilt world. Sarah, 67, with hands that still shake when she pours morning coffee alone, had adopted Luna 18 months after her husband Robert's funeral. "I don't need another heartbreak," she'd told the shelter volunteer, even as Luna pressed her warm body against Sarah's legs. But Robert always said Sarah collected broken things. Stray cats, wounded birds, students written off by other teachers. Luna wasn't broken exactly, but she was alone, and Sarah understood alone. Their Sunday hikes became sacred ritual. Every weekend, the same trail up Copper Ridge, where Sarah would tell Luna stories about Robert, how he'd proposed at this exact viewpoint, how they'd scattered his ashes near that cluster of aspens. Luna listened the way only dogs can, with her entire being, as if Sarah's words were treats to be savored. "You're the only one who lets me talk about him without that look," Sarah would whisper, scratching behind Luna's ears. The look that said it was time to move on. Time to stop living in the past. The morning Luna disappeared, fog rolled in like smoke from distant fire, reducing visibility to maybe 15 feet. Sarah had clipped Luna's leash, but Luna caught a scent. Something wild and urgent, and in the split second it took Sarah to readjust her grip. Luna vanished into the white. Sarah called until her voice gave out, crashed through underbrush until her clothes were torn, searched until park rangers escorted her back to her car after dark. What followed were 14 days of desperate hope that transforms ordinary people into detectives. Sarah printed 500 missing dog posters, hands shaking as she stapled them to every telephone pole within 20 miles. She created Facebook groups that grew to thousands of members, strangers sharing Luna's photo across social media networks. She slept 3 hours a night, spending the rest driving mountain roads with Luna's favorite squeaky toy, windows down, playing recordings of her own voice calling Luna's name. Janet Chen, a software engineer who'd lost her own rescue dog to a car accident, coordinated search parties through the local hiking club. Day 12. Janet tells Sarah over the phone, her voice carrying the weight of diminishing returns, "We've covered every marked trail within 15 miles. The thermal drone picked up deer, elk, even bears, but no dog-sized heat signatures." What Janet doesn't say is what they both know. After 2 weeks without food or shelter in October mountain weather, the search has quietly shifted from rescue to recovery. But Tom Bradley isn't looking for a dog when he rappels into the Blackstone mine on day 14. Tom's explored abandoned mines for 15 years, documenting forgotten industrial histories scattered across these mountains. He knows these shafts can be death traps, unstable, prone to flooding, filled with toxic gases that have killed curious explorers. He's wearing full safety gear, breathing filtered air, when he hears something that stops him cold. A bark. Weak, but unmistakably alive. Captain Rodriguez has spent 20 years pulling people out of places they were never supposed to be. Mine rescues, cave-ins, flash floods. He's seen what happens when Earth decides to reclaim what humans have borrowed. But there's something else driving him today. Something he doesn't tell his team. 3 years ago, his own German Shepherd, Rex, fell through ice on a mountain lake during training. Rodriguez dove in after him, but the current was too strong. Water too cold. He still dreams about Rex's eyes, the way they held his gaze until they disappeared beneath the surface. Dr. Emily Foster waits at base camp, her mobile veterinary unit stocked with IV fluids, antibiotics, and hope that medical training teaches you to measure in small doses. She's treated hypothermia, dehydration, infected wounds, all predictable consequences of prolonged exposure. But she's also seen unpredictable resilience of animals who refuse to give up. German Shepherds are bred for endurance, she explains to Sarah, who hasn't left the mine entrance since Tom's discovery. If any dog can survive what Luna's been through, it's her breed. 3 previous rescue attempts have failed. The first team tried lowering a kennel on ropes, but Luna was too weak to climb inside. The second attempt used a mechanical winch, but vibrations caused partial collapse, sending chunks of timber crashing into water below. The third team tried creating a makeshift ladder, but shaft walls are too unstable to support anchor points. Now, as afternoon shadows stretch across the mine entrance, Rodriguez studies blueprints from 1951, the last known survey of these tunnels. The paper is yellow, brittle, marked with handwritten notes from engineers who assumed these passages would be forgotten. But here's what they didn't anticipate: that someday someone would need to understand every angle, every structural weakness, every potential failure point. Because 40 feet below, a dog named Luna represents the difference between a woman who still has family and a woman who has lost everything that makes her want to wake up tomorrow. Tom Bradley's headlamp cuts through the darkness as he descends into the Blackstone mine, his breathing apparatus fogging in the cold air. Then he hears it, a sound that doesn't belong in this forgotten place. A bark, weak but unmistakably alive, echoing up from depths that haven't heard a living voice in decades. 40 feet below, Luna lifts her head toward the thin beam of light. For 14 days, she's survived on rainwater and stubborn hope that Sarah will find her. Her left rear leg throbs from the fall that brought her here. But she forces herself to stand, to bark, to make herself known to this first sign of human presence since the world went dark. Captain Rodriguez arrives within an hour, his rescue truck loaded with equipment representing 2 decades of impossible saves. But peering down the shaft, even his experienced eye sees the problem. The wooden framework dates back to the 1800s. Every beam sags under mountain pressure. Every joint groans with the weight of time and neglect. The first rescue attempt begins with cautious optimism. Rodriguez's team lowers ropes, but the moment they take tension, something shifts. A support beam that's held position for over a century suddenly gives way, sending chunks of rotting wood cascading into darkness. Luna's bark turns sharp with fear as debris crashes around her, and Rodriguez pulls his team back as dust billows up from the depths. Through settling dust, they can see Luna clearly, golden coat matted and dark, body pressed against the far wall. But Rodriguez notices something else through binoculars. Luna isn't just surviving. She's protecting something. Her position suggests she's guarding a corner they can't see from above. Body language of a dog who's found something worth defending, even in desperate circumstances. The weather forecast changes everything. Janet Chen receives the call. Flash flood warning for the entire watershed. Heavy rain expected within 6 hours. These mountain storms bring accumulated runoff from dozens of peaks, turning gentle streams into raging torrents that fill mine shafts in minutes. Dr. Emily Foster arrives as first raindrops darken the dusty ground. Through binoculars, she observes Luna's condition with clinical precision. Breathing labored, left rear leg compromised, repeated barking attempts noticeably weaker. Her assessment is grimly professional. Luna has hours, not days, before dehydration and injury overcome her will to survive. Sarah Martinez hasn't left the mine entrance since Tom's discovery, surviving on coffee and determination. She talks constantly to Luna, voice carrying down the shaft. Stories about weekend hikes, about Luna stealing Robert's slippers, about their morning routine, where Luna brings the newspaper from a box she can't possibly reach. But 14 days of hope mixed with terror take their toll. When the structural engineer declares the mine extremely unstable, when Dr. Foster explains Luna's deteriorating condition, when rain begins falling with increasing intensity, something inside Sarah breaks. She collapses beside the mine entrance, her body finally acknowledging what her mind refused to accept. Sometimes love isn't enough to overcome 40 feet of vertical stone and timber. The structural engineer's report is devastating. The mine support system is actively failing. Every vibration brings complete collapse closer. Professional protocol demands immediate evacuation, establishment of safety perimeter, acceptance that some rescues are beyond human capability to execute safely. But Rodriguez knows something the engineer doesn't understand. The sound Rex made when ice gave way beneath him, the way his German shepherd's eyes held his gaze until they disappeared beneath dark water. He knows survivor's guilt, how it settles into your bones and changes how you breathe, sleep, define yourself as someone who saves lives or watches them slip away. Rain intensifies, water trickling down shaft walls. The flood warning becomes certainty, peak flow expected within 90 minutes. After that, anyone in the mine faces certain death as mountain runoff turns Luna's prison into a vertical river. Dr. Foster tells Rodriguez what they both know. Luna's barking grows more desperate, irregular, the sound of an animal whose strength is failing. Professional judgment is clear. Luna has maybe an hour before shock renders rescue meaningless. Rodriguez looks at his team, people who trust his judgment with their lives. This situation violates every protocol, challenges every safety standard. The shaft represents almost certain death for anyone attempting descent, and responsibility demands withdrawal. Instead, Rodriguez begins strapping on his harness, checking equipment he knows might not be sufficient. His team watches in stunned silence as their captain makes a career-defining decision. He's going down alone. One life is acceptable risk, multiple lives cross into reckless endangerment. Rain drums against makeshift shelter, each drop carrying promise of flood to come. Luna's barking echoes with increasing desperation as if she understands time is running out. Rodriguez clips descent gear to jury-rigged rope system around the sturdiest remaining beam, knowing if it fails, both he and Luna die together in darkness below. As Rodriguez begins descent, headlamp illuminating treacherous path ahead, Luna senses rescue is finally coming. Her barking intensifies one last time, carrying hope and determination that's kept her alive through 14 impossible days. But Rodriguez hears something else in that sound. Recognition that survival now depends on trust between two creatures who've never met, bound by the simple truth that when everything fails, The only choice left is risking everything for the chance to save a single life. Rodriguez's boots scrape against wet stone as he rappels into the darkness, rain drumming against his helmet with increasing fury. Every foot of descent brings him closer to Luna's desperate barking, but also deeper into a death trap that's filling with water faster than anyone calculated. His headlamp cuts through the gloom, revealing Luna standing on her shrinking island of dry rock, amber eyes reflecting his light like twin beacons of hope in an ocean of despair. 20 feet from Luna, disaster strikes. The ancient rope snags on a loose support beam, jerking Rodriguez to a violent stop. He dangles helplessly in the void, close enough to see Luna's labored breathing, close enough to hear her whimpering, but impossibly far from reaching her. The water below rises with merciless persistence, and Luna is forced to stand, her injured leg trembling with the effort of keeping herself above the flood. The radio crackles with static and panic from the surface team. Evacuation orders cut through the white noise like a blade. Everyone out now, before the entire mine becomes a tomb. But Rodriguez stares into Luna's eyes across 20 feet of impossible distance, and something passes between them that transcends species, transcends logic. Two creatures who understand that sometimes the only choice left is to refuse surrender, even when surrender makes perfect sense. Rodriguez pulls out his knife. The blade gleams in his headlamp as he positions it against his safety line, the rope that represents his only guaranteed path back to sunlight and air, and the life waiting for him above ground. His team's voices scream through the radio as they realize what he's planning, but their words dissolve into meaningless noise. There's only Luna. Only the rising water. Only the crystalline moment when a human being decides that some things matter more than personal survival. The rope separates with a whisper, and Rodriguez drops into water so cold it drives the breath from his lungs like a physical blow. The shock nearly paralyzes him, but somehow he pushes forward through the waist-deep torrent, each step a battle against current and cold, and the voice in his head screaming that he's just killed them both. Luna's barking becomes frantic as he approaches, not the sound of joy but of warning, as if she's trying to tell him something crucial that he doesn't yet understand. Rodriguez reaches Luna just as the water threatens to claim her small refuge, his numb fingers grasping wet fur as she trembles against him. But as his flashlight sweeps across her makeshift sanctuary, the beam reveals something that stops his heart. 3 tiny kittens, barely old enough to open their eyes, cling to Luna's back like survivors of their own impossible shipwreck. Their fur is dry, warm, protected by the body heat of a dog who chose their lives over her own freedom. The truth hits Rodriguez like a physical force. Luna wasn't trapped, she was imprisoned by love. The collapsed timber created a path she could have climbed weeks ago, but she stayed. Through 14 days of hunger and thirst and bone-deep cold, she remained with these abandoned kittens, keeping them alive with her body heat, her breath, her absolute refusal to let them die alone in the darkness. The water reaches Rodriguez's chest, and he realizes they have minutes, maybe seconds, before the chamber fills completely. His radio sputters with the surface team's desperate attempts to lower an emergency basket, but the rising flood makes every movement a battle against physics and time. Luna allows Rodriguez to lift her toward the descending rescue basket, but only after he secures each kitten against his chest, only after she's certain they're safe. The ascent becomes a nightmare of rope and water and the terrible weight of responsibility. Rodriguez cradles 3 tiny lives against his body, while Luna presses close, her warmth the only thing standing between the kittens and hypothermia. The mine shaft tries to claim them with every foot they rise. Loose rocks cascade around them, support beams groan with the strain of flood and rescue, and the water below churns like a living thing, hungry for the lives that are escaping its grasp. When they break the surface into rain and lamplight and the chaos of human voices, something has changed in all of them forever. Rodriguez will never again question the mathematics of risk versus reward, because he's learned that some equations can't be balanced on paper. Luna will carry the scars of her 2 weeks underground, but also the unshakable knowledge that love sometimes means choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. The kittens mew against Rodriguez's chest as paramedics wrap them in heated blankets, their tiny voices joining the symphony of rescue that echoes across the mountain. They don't understand that they've just witnessed something miraculous. The moment when maternal instinct transcended species, when a German Shepherd became a mother to creatures she had no biological reason to save. When the very definition of family expanded to include whoever needs protection most desperately in the darkness. The emergency veterinary clinic blazes with fluorescent light as Dr. Foster works over 4 lives that should never have survived what they've endured. Luna lies on the examination table, her golden coat still damp from mine water, while 3 tiny kittens mew softly in heated incubators nearby. The numbers tell part of the story. Luna has lost 12 pounds, her body temperature dangerously low, dehydration evident in every test result. But the kittens, barely 8 weeks old, show no signs of hypothermia or malnutrition. Their small bodies warm and healthy because a dog chose their survival over her own. Sarah arrives from the hospital still wearing the paper bracelet from her own emergency treatment, her hands shaking as she approaches Luna's recovery kennel. The reunion happens in silence first. Just a woman and a dog looking into each other's eyes across 2 weeks of impossible survival. When Sarah finally speaks Luna's name, her voice breaks with the weight of every prayer whispered into sleepless nights, every mile driven searching mountain roads, every moment she believed she'd lost the last living connection to the life she'd built with Robert. The video appears online within hours of the rescue. Grainy footage shot on someone's phone, showing Rodriguez emerging from the mine shaft with Luna and 3 kittens pressed against his chest. Within 24 hours, the clip has been viewed 2 million times, shared across continents with captions in dozens of languages. The story spreads not because of its impossibility, but because of its simple truth. That love creates families in the most unexpected places. That protection transcends every boundary except the ones we choose to honor. Luna's recovery unfolds in Sarah's living room, which transforms into something unprecedented in veterinary literature. An interspecies nursery where a German Shepherd mothers 3 kittens with the same intensity she once showed, guarding them in darkness. The kittens, named Hope, Faith, and Luna Jr. by neighborhood children, treat their canine mother with absolute trust, curling against her warmth, following her movements, learning the world through her patient guidance. Captain Rodriguez finds himself changed in ways that ripple through every rescue call that follows. His department creates a new position, Animal Rescue Specialist, and Rodriguez transfers his 2 decades of human rescue experience to operations involving creatures who can't call for help. He approaches each case with Luna's lesson embedded in his thinking, that the choice to stay and protect, even when escape seems logical, represents the highest form of courage any species can demonstrate. The Blackstone mine receives its final visitors 6 months after the rescue, a work crew installing a bronze plaque that reads simply, "Luna's Mine, where love proved stronger than fear." The shaft is sealed permanently, but hikers still leave small offerings at the memorial site, dog treats and flowers, creating an impromptu shrine to the power of unconditional protection. The mountain trail where Luna first disappeared becomes known as Guardian's Path, walked by families who come to understand that heroism often looks like quiet persistence in impossible circumstances. Dr. Foster publishes her findings in the Journal of Interspecies Behavior, documenting Luna's case as the first recorded instance of long-term maternal adoption between dog and multiple cats under survival conditions. But beyond the scientific terminology lies something more profound. Evidence that biological imperatives can be overridden by emotional bonds. that family structures exist in forms textbooks never anticipated. 6 months after the rescue, Luna walks the same mountain trail where her story began, but nothing about this journey resembles those previous weekend hikes. 3 cats follow behind her in single file. Hope with her calico patches, Faith sleek and black, Luna Jr. bearing her mother's golden markings. Sarah watches this unlikely parade with wonder that never diminishes, understanding that she's witnessing something that redefines the very concept of family structure. Luna's protective instincts now extend to every small creature they encounter on their walks. She positions herself between the cats and unfamiliar dogs, guides them around dangerous terrain, shares her water bowl with any animal that approaches their yard. The behavior suggests something profound happened during those 14 days underground. Luna learned that protection isn't just about survival, it's about creating space for others to thrive. The Luna effect transforms the local animal shelter as cross-species adoptions increase dramatically. Families arrive requesting dogs who might bond with their cats, cats who could comfort their aging dogs, seeking to recreate the magic they witnessed in Luna's story. The shelter reports a 60% increase in adoptions within 3 months of the rescue, with many families specifically requesting animals who need special care or have unique circumstances. Sarah channels her experience into Guardian Angels Pet Rescue, a nonprofit focused on animals who fall through traditional adoption systems, seniors, special needs cases, bonded pairs that shouldn't be separated. The organization's first official rescue involves a blind dog and her seeing-eye cat, found abandoned together behind a closed veterinary clinic. Sarah knows exactly how to market their story because she's learned that extraordinary love disguised as ordinary devotion captures hearts in ways that statistics never could. Luna receives certification as a therapy dog, visiting children's hospitals where her calm presence and remarkable story provide comfort to young patients facing their own impossible circumstances. The kittens often accompany these visits, curled in a special carrier, demonstrating to children that families come in unexpected forms, that protection and love transcend every boundary except the ones we choose to acknowledge. The transformation extends beyond individual lives to entire communities who followed Luna's story online. Elementary schools adopt Luna lessons about animal behavior and cross-species friendship. Veterinary colleges add her case to curricula, exploring the emotional lives of animals. Rescue organizations worldwide report increased volunteer applications from people inspired by Rodriguez's example of risking everything for creatures who cannot advocate for themselves. Luna's story teaches us that love isn't bound by species, size, or survival instincts. In our darkest moments, the choice to protect others, even when it costs us everything, reveals the true meaning of heroism. Sometimes the most profound acts of courage happen in places no one will ever see. Look around your world today. Who needs protecting? Who needs rescuing? You don't need to rappel into mine shafts to be someone's hero. Sometimes love means staying when you could leave. Sometimes courage means sacrifice no one will witness. If Luna's impossible story moved you, subscribe to see more incredible tales of animal heroes who redefine what we think we know about love and loyalty. Share this video with someone who needs to believe in miracles today. And tell us in the comments, what's the most amazing thing you've witnessed an animal do? Hit that notification bell, because every week we share stories that prove the extraordinary lives all around us.